I'm a strong believer of interaction, live interaction between people, pretty much what we are doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Everything critical and significant that I had learned in my life, from the stories that I just told you, was through interaction, conversation with people that you connect to. And that is not going to happen in a pre-recorded video, right?
This episode is brought to you by WHU, the Otto Beisheim School of Management. WHU is reshaping the way students learn about business, management, finance, and entrepreneurship through its innovative programs and partnerships in Germany and across the globe. To learn more about this globally ranked university, visit whu.edu today.
Hi folks, Dries here. In the past 2.5 years, Garrett has started interviewing a lot of prominent founders, innovators, and investors who share their experience on the topic of entrepreneurship. Moreover, Garrett is in the process of recording some new episodes with some of the most seminal entrepreneurs in the WHU ecosystem, so stay tuned to hear more about their success stories. However, we also had a feeling that it's time to also give a voice to the newest entrepreneurial talents in our ecosystem. This is why we decided to start a new format, which we call the Most Awesome Founder Talent Recordings. In these episodes, we will talk with several entrepreneurs who are at the starting point of their founding career. More specifically, we will kick off this format by interviewing several founders who are participating in the 2022 WHU Accelerator, an initiative of the WHU Entrepreneurship Center, where we try to support and mentor a small group of high potential startups.
Coming to you from WHU, on the banks of the Rhine River, in beautiful Vallendar, Germany. This is the best and most awesome founder podcast. A show about entrepreneurs, innovators, advisors, and educators, and the stories that make them who they are today.
Today, I'm happy to introduce to you Anand Raj. Anand was born in India, but actually grew up in Saudi Arabia. At the age of 23, he moved to Germany, where he conducted a series of jobs as an automation engineer. At the beginning of 2022, Anand decided to drastically change course and decided to become a first-time founder, initiating the company Joyon. Joyon wants to enable tutors and coaches to set up, organize, and conduct live online courses. He is building the company together with his wife and his best friend, Jishnu. Anand, welcome to the podcast, and great that you were willing to be the first guest in this new format.
Thanks, Dries, for having me. It's definitely an interesting and exciting period for me, and this is the first podcast that I'm doing, so let's see how it goes.
Okay, then I will be gentle for you. It's the first podcast. No, but so as I briefly mentioned already in the introduction, you actually grew up in Saudi Arabia, where you did your high school, then you finished your high school, and then as I understood it, you went back to India to study electrical engineering. But then in 2008, you actually went back to Saudi Arabia amidst the financial crisis to actually find a job as an engineer. But that turned out to be quite challenging, as I understood. More specifically, you were not able to find an engineering job, and you ended up in a kind of hourly paid job as a kind of office clerk, basically doing photocopying of engineering documents. So this sounds like a very challenging situation. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about how you experienced this quite challenging period?
Sure. It was a long time ago, but when I think about it, I think it was the most frightful period of my life, or the frightful thing that I had faced till that point in life. Yeah. Because I had a job in India. So after I finished studies in India, I got recruited as a software engineer in a very comfortable position and in a well-known company. But I was just too ambitious to, be stuck there. And my dream was to become an electrical engineer. So I just kind of quit. I moved back to Saudi Arabia because I was understanding that there was a lot of industrial construction projects going on. So I was hoping that, I'll definitely find a job as an electrical engineer. But then I moved there. I wasn't really understanding the depth of the financial crisis. All the companies put a hold on hiring new people, especially inexperienced persons like myself.
Yeah.
So at the end of, when I think about it, I think I was stuck at home for 3 months, and in Saudi Arabia, there is no entertainment. You're practically stuck at home. I was sending my CVs left and right. I had a bunch of interviews, but the same story, right? So they were not willing to recruit an inexperienced person. And then all of a sudden, I got this call from a human resource leasing company that said that, okay, they're looking for hiring a clerk for the electrical department of the site construction that was going on in a field, in a petrochemical field there. At first, I was, of course, disheartened because, I didn't put all that effort in my life to become an engineer, to, do photocopying of documents. But then, if life had taught me one thing, that was that if you, keep fighting hard in the direction that you want to strongly achieve, something will happen one way or the other, right? Okay. So I also felt that, okay, I am close to what I want to be, right? In the field that I want to be. So let's give it a shot. It wouldn't hurt. So what I did was, okay, I got the job. They were really happy that, okay, an English speaking person was coming in as a clerk. They didn't, of course, know my background, that I was an engineer. So what I did with these documents that I had to photocopy and file was that I studied them in detail, right? Okay. So I went through those documents. I even took them home, and then I kept pumping questions one after the other to the department head, right? So why is this document like this? Why is this value like this, et cetera, et cetera. So in a couple of weeks, he realized that I am not really a clerk, and he asked me what I was. What did I study? I said engineering. And that was the moment when he decided, okay, you have to do engineering tasks, because I think you're talented, you're ambitious, your energy is wasted there. And that was how I, got to be an engineer, out of coincidence, not really expecting that would happen. And after a few months, he asked me if I'd like to join him in Germany in his office as a permanent employee. So it took me all about 3 seconds to say yes to that question. I was 23, a lot of adrenaline going on. And that's how I ended up in Germany, in Europe.
Okay, so that's in the end, that's how you ended up in Germany. I think you were like 23 years old at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it's not that you went to the most fancy place in Germany. It's the city of Salzgitter, which is really in the middle of nowhere in Germany. So how did that feel, being an Indian guy, having lived in Saudi Arabia for quite some time, and then ending up in not really the metropole called Salzgitter? How was that?
Well, in the beginning, it was all super exciting. The experiences were very positive because I had never been to a developed country before, right? I was in Saudi Arabia. So I was really impressed with how well everything was organized, how clean the air was, how clean the streets were.
But so you didn't take the train, because then you would realize that not everything is so well organized in Germany.
Well, at that point of time, the trains were really on time, so it was a difference.
For the better days.
Exactly. So I was, I was always in awe feeling, right, in everything that I saw. But then after a few months, a feeling of isolation started kicking in, a feeling of loneliness, because, without the knowledge of German language, it was practically impossible to be independent and living by yourself and making friends. So the work part of, it was going well, but the life part was kind of, getting to be a bit messy, of course. But I had great bonds with my colleagues and even their families. So one thing that was advantageous in living in a small town like Salzgitter is that people are really caring about each other.
Okay.
And of course there were the offset outlying experiences of racism, but I was kind of too naive to even recognize racism at that point in time. I was just smiling at everybody who spoke something, and I did not know what to say. And my colleagues and their family, they kept pushing me to start speaking German, right? So not like, in an irritated manner, I don't understand you speak German, but hey, come on, it is time that you have to start speaking German, learn. And they even suggest that I move into a flat share, not live by myself with other Germans. And I took their advice. I moved into a flat share, made my first friends. Even after 14 years, they're still my friends. And that kind of, made me push my boundaries, learn German. I was getting a very good acceptance in the society, and that's how I started settling in.
Yeah. Oh, great to hear that. Yeah. So, as I said at the beginning, you're now working on developing a platform to facilitate online learning. But could you maybe share a bit the story about how you came to realize that actually live courses can have substantial added value in comparison with simply watching pre-recorded videos on YouTube? What was the trigger?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a strong believer of interaction, live interaction between people, pretty much what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Everything critical and significant that I had learned in my life, from the stories that I just told you, was through interaction, conversation with people that you connect to. And that is not going to happen in a pre-recorded video, right? But I always, felt that. I did not make any comparisons between pre-recorded courses or live courses until I had this experience myself. And that was in the beginning of 2020 when Corona set in. Right before then, my wife, she is an art director, and she was working for an agency, and she decided to be self-employed. Mm-hmm. And as you can imagine, taxation requirements for, even for normal people are complicated in Germany. And then you can imagine how complicated it is for self-employment. And we were browsing through literally hundreds of videos, and it took us many weeks until we realized that we have more questions than answers, because all those videos were, it looked great at the beginning, but then it did not cover every point that we wanted answered. The content was bad, and then we, keep browsing further. We read articles. We were really confused and kind of frustrated at that point until I thought of, just talking to a tax consultant, right? I mean, I was not willing to pay 150 euros for an hour of consultation at that point of time, but then I had reached a point where I said, okay, this is not going to work out. Yeah. And at that point of time, everything was, working online, right? So we had an online conference where we basically went through the whole process. He gave us very practical examples of what we should do with regards to taxation and filing financials, etc. And it was, in one word, amazing, right? So the weeks that we had spent prior to browsing through, crappy videos, he was able to answer all of our questions and give us very valuable inputs in under an hour. And that was kind of the, the beginning point of me thinking about Joyon.
Okay, great. And as I understood, 2020 is also the year that you started the Executive MBA at WHU in collaboration with Kellogg, which of course was also the period when we didn't have on-site teaching. It was the midst of the Corona crisis. So did that further help you to develop this idea, or can you tell a bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I mentioned, so even after the experience with the tax consultant, I had never imagined that I would be, working on a startup around that idea today. At that point of time, I was comfortably employed in a corporate job as a project manager for industrial construction projects, and I was getting tired of corporate life. Okay. And I wanted to, improve myself, learn new things, experience a learning curve again, and that was what made me join the Executive MBA. It was first offline because there was a brief period of a relaxation of lockdowns when the program started, but soon after it, everything went online, and we were, of course, frustrated and irritated at first. But then I saw that it had immense flexibility to offer, right? So professors from the US were able to take part without having to travel so much. And we were, the comfort of our homes and able to fit in everything. And most of the professors had actually made the course in such a way that it was super interactive. So not only between us and the professors, but also between the peers. And I kind of realized that, live learning still works, even if it is in an online environment. And the level of engagement that we learners get through that is still far more superior than if you would do the same course in a pre-recorded environment, right? Also the networking possibilities that it has to offer. And all this kind of kept adding on to my imagination, my daydreams of a platform for live courses. But the turning point in fact came in one module in the Kellogg-WHU, which was of course around entrepreneurism.
Okay.
And so there was a 6-day module, and then practically on the 7th day, that was when I decided, okay, I have to start doing something about it.
Okay, that's interesting. And so then you decided, okay, I want to really further develop this idea of this stimulating people to make it possible for this kind of live online teaching, no? That was then the idea that really you wanted to further develop.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, before the module, I was, not really sure how to go about it. Right?
Okay.
It's just an idea. And I thought, okay, it's $1 million idea. Of course, why isn't anybody doing it? After the module, I had, the basic understanding of how I should start.
Okay.
And the first idea was indeed a platform, a marketplace focused on live and interactive courses for adults, because I was just picturing myself, as someone who would be a student of this platform, who would be taking live courses from people all around the world, offering different courses, to make myself better, right? Pretty much.
So you had the idea of a Coursera, but then live instead of pre-recorded videos that it would be live. Yeah,
Coursera or Udemy.
Yeah,
all those platforms that are pre-recorded, but one in live and interactive. Yeah. So that was the idea that I wanted to pursue.
Okay. And when you started exploring that idea, what kind of challenges that you came across?
Yeah. So what I did first was I ran a survey to just make sure that I'm not the only one in the world who wants this kind of a format in learning, right? I mean, for me, it was obvious that there are many out there, of course, looking at the number of people who are taking, Kellogg-WHU MBA, which is live and paying, let's say, a significant amount of money to do that. And the survey just kind of also concurred with my intuition. Majority of the people are willing to pay a premium for live and interactive courses. Okay. But what was insightful in that survey was that I also gave them a choice of different topics for which they would actually pay for live and interactive courses. And I understood that people would be willing to pay for courses around professional and personal development, languages, entrepreneurism, so startup related items, etc., and not so much as perhaps cooking. For those, of course, there are tons of videos out there, and the motivation is also different, right?
Yeah.
And so after the survey, I talked to a lot of peers about it. I even reached out to you and Garrett to talk about the idea.
Yeah.
And then, the challenges started coming in, right? So people rightly pointed out, how are you going to start this marketplace, right? I mean, it's nice. The idea is amazing. If it works, it is a huge idea, but what is going to be your first step?
It's always the chicken or egg problem, not? That is always what we tell our students. You need to solve the chicken or egg problem.
Exactly, the proverbial chicken and egg problem for marketplace, right? And of course they were right. I mean, I did not have millions of dollars in my bank account that I could throw in for expensive digital marketing campaigns, and without that, it was impossible to get people onto the platform, right? So course providers would not come to the platform without having thousands of learners in there, and vice versa. Learners would not come to an empty platform where there is no offering, right?
Yeah.
And there was no possibility for me to initiate that with the resources that I had. So that was, of course, the biggest challenge.
Yeah. So that's required you to pivot to some extent. So can you tell us a bit about how you tried then to pivot?
Yeah, I mean, at first, I wasn't thinking about pivoting. I was, of course, disheartened that, the idea is not going to go forward.
No.
And it is a kind of an idea that is very close to my heart as well. So education is very close to my heart. And it was not easy to just let go of that idea and, pivot into something completely different. I mean, during the survey, I had also interviewed many course providers and also took part in some so-called trial classes with these course providers.
Okay.
And I try to remember, my experience in interviewing them. And one of course, the key problem that they faced was how hard it was for them to handle the technology that they need to use for running these live courses.
Yeah.
Right. So they had crappy websites. Registrations for these courses were a pain. I mean, there are cases where I had to call them up to ask them how to register. And this was also pretty normal for them. So there's a person sitting to just answer people how to register. They send them a link and you have to fill a huge form. Yeah. And after that, you're bombarded with emails. I was sent wrong Zoom links every now and then. And I thought of then exploring that part of the process. So I was still focusing on the idea of live interactive courses, but then I try to approach it from a different angle without even knowing that I was trying to pivot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it proved to be right. I managed to then interview over 100 course providers over time.
Okay.
And it was also pretty interesting how forthcoming they were. So I just emailed them saying that I'm doing a research for my master thesis, so to say, and I'd like their input as I was, my study has something to do about live interactive courses online.
Yeah.
So everybody said, yeah, sure, happy to jump into a call. And then I asked them through their process of setting up their infrastructure, how much time and money it took for them to set up the infrastructure, what sort of tools and tech stack are they using now, what sort of KPIs are they following, etc. And it was very interesting and also surprising to find the results that it took them over 3 months to set up an IT structure, because most of them are not offering software classes, so they're not really IT affine, So they're like language teachers, they're teaching career coachings, etc. So they have to fight to find the right infrastructure, right? So then at the end they pay thousands of euros to some agency to create a crappy looking WordPress site, and then they have to stitch together Excel lists and booking system on WordPress and another invoicing system, and then of course multiple Zoom accounts. And then when you think about it, their customers are definitely not really happy, right? It's a very chaotic journey for them as well.
Yeah.
And these tutors are not even realizing that they're losing customers because of this bad infrastructure. They just did not have the understanding of how tracking and analytics works to even know that. And that was when it kind of hit me that this should be effectively the way I should approach this problem.
Yeah, so you wanted actually to create the kind of the Shopify of online courses, not something like that. Live online courses in a kind of Shopify design and format and usability for the producers.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like giving this comparison to Shopify because it's essentially a tool that brings together many tools required for a particular business type, right? So what Shopify offered to the e-commerce sellers, I would like to offer the live interactive course providers.
Yeah.
Right? So the essential tools required just for this purpose that helps them take care of their business on one hand and also run their courses on the other.
Okay.
So stitched together in complete harmony with a beautiful AI so that everything is simple and automated.
Yeah, oh, clear. And so is that then also how you would see a kind of your differentiating advantage? That it's really kind of providing the producers of this live online courses a seamless integrated experience, making their life easier and making it in the end also easier for the students then to participate.
Definitely. So, I mean, this live and interactive courses was expected to die before Corona came along, right? So the pre-recorded course industry was booming and growing rapidly year by year, and nobody expected live and interactive courses to survive for another 20 years. I mean, from a business and investment standpoint. So this industry was really underserved. And even today, if you look at the big players in the field, their business model is still revolving around pre-recorded courses, selling digital products in scale, etc. So they had invested heavily into this segment. I believe that they started realizing that the live courses are coming back, but their offering is so complex and expensive that, for example, a language school cannot use that platform for offering their courses. This is exactly where then Joyon comes in, and its USP is that it's focusing only on this kind of a business and format of education and avoiding all the other noise.
Yeah, so your customer segment from the producer side is more the small providers of content, not the bigger, I don't know, publishing houses and stuff like that. It's more the smaller providers.
Exactly. I mean, these are indeed the people who need the architecture because they do not have a lot of upfront capital and time to invest in setting it all up. Big players in the industry, of course, they would invest. They have their own IT department, so they will, get everything programmed themselves. But small-time players, especially ones who are entering the market, they face a very huge barrier of entry because they do not have a solution that fits their need, right? And on the other hand, they are indeed the biggest market as well. So the most number of live interactive courses offered today globally are from very small enterprises, even one-person industries, right? So just in Germany, there are over 500,000 who are actively doing it now. Not to mention the people who are coming into the new market on a year-by-year basis.
Yeah, and of course, you also have the whole market of tutoring to students and stuff like that, which might be also an interesting part of that. Yeah,
exactly. But there are, let's say, different offerings catering to tutoring. I mean, there are more marketplace approach for students and tutoring, etc. They are not the kind of people who run businesses as well. So most of them, at the end of the day, of course, they can use Joyon. It provides them all the tools that they need to market themselves, to make them look like superstars. But what I really, feel the urge to work on is indeed the field of education for adults, to reskill and upskill. Because again, I see myself as somebody who would benefit from this platform, right? Benefit from superstars teaching what they can to others. And I'll definitely be a learner in that instance.
Yeah. So that's really, I would say then, if we talk about a bit the vision where you want to end up, because of course you're at the initial stages now of the startup. That's also why we wanted to talk with you. So the vision is a bit really becoming an important player, helping adults to get the necessary additional education to further develop their career, that kind of stuff.
Definitely. I mean, when I think about our vision, we have, twofold. So one is, of course, to enhance interaction between human beings, right? So on a day like today, where, youngsters are always spending a lot of time on their phones, not talking to the person sitting next to them, we would like to make a change. So even if it is through an online environment, that they are able to see and speak with others, especially for a good causes education. That is a part of our vision, and the other is indeed democratization of education, because like I mentioned, the most important things in my life I learned not really from the universities or classrooms, but from my peers, from talking to people who are very close to me, important to me, mentors, and what they were able to transfer me is what I have been taking along throughout my life, right? So this sort of an informal education, if you can call it that, where people are passing their specialties to other people, are definitely on the rise. And I think when we look at the far future, that will be the main source of education, if you ask me.
Yeah, great. And actually, I think Joyon would have been very helpful for the 20-year-old Anand sitting in Salzgitter wanting to learn German. Not that would have been
100%. I mean, at that point of time, I had to travel 1 hour to another city to take a couple of hours of German classes.
Okay.
And there were not a lot of providers, like I mentioned, right? So it was hard for them to offer something like this. And this is effectively what Joyon wants to provide the world.
Yeah, great. Maybe one broader question to close our conversation. So I think I can assume, because you were growing up in the 80s, that you're a bit older than most of our entrepreneurs that we have in the Accelerator cohort. And when we think about age and entrepreneurs, we also always talk about this golden handcuff problem. Yeah? That's actually, the older you get, the more experience you have, the better your networks, which is actually very beneficial for developing a successful startup, but it also makes you forcing to leave a kind of comfortable corporate life that you have, and that might make the jump to startup life more difficult. And so the golden handcuffs might actually be a hampering factor to take the jump. But you did it now, in 2022, beginning of 2022, you really decided to leave your job, start Joyon. So can you share with us a bit why apparently this golden handcuff problem is not an issue for you, or why you still, despite of it, made the jump to become an entrepreneur?
Definitely, great question. I mean, I wouldn't say that the golden handcuff problem didn't exist for me.
Okay.
It did, as you would have imagined. I mean, I was, in a very comfortable and well-paid job in an environment that I was really familiar with, right? And that was also the reason why it took this much amount of time for me to actually transition into an entrepreneur. But what helped was that, I mean, throughout my life, I've been able to also learn to take calculated risk, right? So, I mean, last year when I was still working, to analyze the situation, I took a sabbatical of 3 months to kind of, do a lot of research, talk to people. I also was a part of an accelerator program called Antler, where I came together in a live cohort with founders from all over the globe.
Okay.
And hearing their stories, talking to them, it kind of became clear to me that this is the path that I'd like to pursue. And that was one great factor. And the other was, of course, the support system that you have. I mean, I'm not speaking about the social support system from the government, but my family was always behind my back, right? When they feel that I'm doing the right thing. So in this case, my wife, my parents, my friends, everybody gave me that last push that I needed to, say goodbye to my comfortable job and look into the abyss and just do what it takes for me to get there, so to say.
Yeah, so to jump and build the airplane on the way down, as Reid Hoffman would say. That's
pretty much.
That's what entrepreneurship is about. Yeah,
exactly. But again, it all comes back to the bond that you have with people and the influence that they are able to give you and support you, right? And that made me make that jump.
Great. Anand, thanks a lot for sharing your story. I think it's a very fascinating story, and it's great to hear your ideas, but also the vision for the startup. I think that's very fascinating. And I wish you good luck with the next steps. I hope that we, with our accelerator, can help you a bit. But in the end, let's hope that this can really become the next scalable business in the WHU ecosystem. Thanks again for being willing to share. And I also hope that our listeners enjoyed the talk with Anand. If you like it, please don't forget to rate our podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to our podcast. And if you didn't like it, then please don't rate us. And I hope that we will hear you back in the next episodes, that you stay tuned for the next episodes of the Awesome Fun podcast. Bye.